What's going on, everyone? So we're moving into day 4 and nothing has happened, right? We're at the end of day 3 and Lakers have yet to make a move. Kind of nothing happened today, right? It was kind of like just Kyle Anderson going to the Golden State Warriors and that was basically it. So luckily it has been kind of slow moving. All like the top free agents that the Lakers most likely would want or have potential to obtain are all still pretty much available. So it's like, okay, but at what point does that first domino fall for the Lakers, right? Lakers are waiting around for Demar Derozan. That's fine. I'm all for Demar Derozan. Bring in Demar Derozan. But it's got to be within reason, right? At what point do you just kind of move on or call his bluff? Or if he's still trying to figure out what he wants to do, go make some other moves. And then if he wants to come, we'll figure out that and work that out. Right? I'm not saying the Lakers have to do all their moves immediately, right? Like, oh, I need you to do everything by the end of the day. But one point, it would be nice to get at least that first step. Okay, here is this minor move, even if it's just like clearing salaries, okay? Because that would signal at least something is coming, at least something is brewing, and they have a clear direction. Right now, it just seems like they're running it back, right? Like there's all these rumors, there's all this noise, there's all this like, oh, over here, right? DeMar DeRozan, there's been a ton of different reports that some say that he might just sign a 1-year deal at the MLE, and then there's other reports that say, no, he's not going to take the MLE no matter what. He's not going to take that little amount of money. And then there's reports that say he wants $25 million in a sign-in trade, right? And it's like, it's getting chaotic at this point with DeMar DeRozan. He either wants to come or he doesn't. If he wants to come, what does it take? And if it's $25 million, is it worth the Lakers paying him that? I don't think he's necessarily worth the $25 million. I think 18, 20 million range is fine, right? Plus, you also have to keep in mind that DeMar isn't the only piece we need. If DeMar was it, right? Like, let's say we could get DeMar DeRozan and that was it. And it was like, okay, boom, we're one of the top 3 to 5 teams in the league. Then sure, give him the $25 million, get it over with and let's go. But no, we need DeMar DeRozan and we need a center and another 3-and-D wing and probably a point guard because we're going to lose D'Angelo Russell, right? Like there's so many other things that the Lakers need beyond just DeMar DeRozan. And so to me, it's like it has to be within reason. And if he's not budging and he's not willing to work, okay, well then clearly you don't want it that bad. I mean, you're still 35 years old. What's your market? If Miami's willing to give you $25 million a year, fine, go to Miami and, good luck to you. And let's go do something else. Because at some point, it's like we got to get something done. But sticking with DeMar DeRozan, right? Because again, I'm all for DeMar DeRozan. And so if there needs to be a little incentive, right? Or if there is this competition with Miami, Miami's trying to put some pressure to acquire DeMar DeRozan, right? Chicago has other pieces we could need. Now, I know people have thrown out Lonzo Ball, like, oh, go get Lonzo. To me, let him get bought out and then go pick him up via free agency on a vet minimum. He hasn't played in 2.5 years, right? Like literally, like I would love Lonzo. If Lonzo could get back to being, half of what he was as a bench backup point guard would be huge. I would love to have Lonzo, legit point of attack, 3-and-D point guard that can make plays with everybody. I mean, before he got hurt with Chicago, he was cooking. He was looking ridiculous. He was shooting something like 43% from 3 or something insane like that. Like he was looking every bit like the guy that his potential signaled, right? But I just think he's too much of a risk right now to bring him on at that price when you have other needs. So to me, if Chicago ends up buying him out and you can bring him in, fine, so be it. I'd love that, right? And you got to remember, if we get under that threshold, then now we can could be candidates for buyout targets, where when we were over the threshold, we couldn't. So something to keep in mind. There's a cap, but basically we could now, assuming the numbers work out, we could sign guys off buyout. So if he gets waived, boom, we can bring him in, which would be huge. But beyond that, the Lakers have a need at the center position. I don't hate the idea of bringing in Nikola Vucevic, if we can get the deal done. And if we don't have to give up assets and we can kind of like facilitate that, and then whether it's still a 3-team deal, because there are talks about like a 3-team deal with the Brooklyn Nets, or even if it's straight up, Utah is another name that's being thrown into the ring, right? The Lakers need a center. And Vu would be excellent in that regard. He's the big body center that can rebound, stretch the floor. You can dump the ball down to him. He can go to work and just go get a bucket. Defensively, he's not the best. He can be serviceable at times. I do think alongside Anthony Davis, he'd be really good. But there are those questions of like him on the defensive side. Also, he still has 2 more years on his deal. This year is $20 million. Next year is $21 million. But that also may be incentive and enticing enough to kind of get everything done and preserve assets. But to me, it also depends on what DeMar signs for. If we have to go and trade and basically bring on $20 million of Vu's salary and then $25 million of DeMar's salary, then at that point, no. But if you can get Vu and DeMar for, say, $20 million, right, and basically you line them up to like a 3-year deal, all of their money basically falls off when like AD and everybody. So you're just running it with this team, right? So you're in good shape. Maybe you could go get can you go get a Dorian Finney-Smith? Because I don't think you'd be able to get like a Jeremy Grant or a Cam Johnson at that point. I mean, you'd still have your assets, which would be great. You could still keep your assets because they want to move off of Vu. But it's like how many teams, 1, need a center, 2, are willing to trade for a $20 million center that has 2 years. If he was expiring, then I could see him maybe being moved. But you got to take on 2 years. For the Lakers, I don't mind that. We need a center. I would be okay with taking on Vu, and you got him locked up for the next 2 years, and then bringing in DeMar on like a 3-year $60 million or 3-year $50 million deal, something like that, somewhere in that range. Boom. Now you got those 2 guys. You still have your mid-level exception, and maybe you could go get a Dorian Finney-Smith or something like that, and then just kind of run LeBron as the point, right? So you could basically go like, LeBron, DeMar, Dorian Finney-Smith, AD, and Vu, right? I don't know. My concern would be defensively. Like, how does that look and work defensively? But offensively, you'd be terrifying, right? I mean, because you have DeMar who could just go get a bucket, LeBron, AD, you could dump it down to Vu's playmaking ability out of the post, Dorian Finney-Smith and his ability to shoot the basketball. Or you go with like a Cam Reddish or Jared Vanderbilt. Right? If you don't get Dorian Finney-Smith, you go get Cam Reddish, Jared Vanderbilt. I know people don't like how much I bring up Dorian Finney-Smith, but he is a legit 3-and-D guy. He won't cost the farm, and it's realistic, right? Like, I would love to have, DeMar, Vu, and Jeremy Grant, but chances are you're probably not going to, you're talking more likely $70 million in salary. Could the Lakers get there? Technically, yes, but it's like, I just don't know how realistic that is. Otherwise, you just keep Jared Vanderbilt because at that point, you'd have DeMar, LeBron, AD, and Vu. You have more than enough offensive firepower to make that work. You have 2 bigs that you can basically bring out to create space at the to create driving lanes. And then, Jared Vanderbilt, he could just be serviceable. Put him in the screen as the screener and kind of roll man, have him attack and rebound off the corners. Like, I don't hate that idea. Again, it's not my favorite. I would still prefer like a Demar Derozan and like a Jeremy Grant. I'd still prefer a couple other options there. But to me, if like you could get those 2, or if we still have our mid-level exception, again, Miles Bridges, I'll just keep throwing out his name. If you could go and trade for DeMar and Vu and then go get Miles Bridges, now we're really talking. Because you got basically 5 guys that can all go get you 20 plus on any given night. You got size with Vu, LeBron. DeMar would be your shortest player at that point, right? And you can kind of go and, again, have LeBron operate as the point guard. He doesn't have to, right? Because JJ's trying to run some free-flowing offense. So basically, you just need an initiator, which DeMar Derozan could do that. DeMar DeRozan's done it and did it and played point guard for the Spurs at times. He's done it for Chicago at times, right? So you're talking about a guy, yes, he's not a point guard, but he can get the initiation going. Right? Bring the ball up, boom, get you in your action, and then now you're off to the races and you're doing whatever you're doing, right? Have different sets, different actions. Again, it's not my favorite idea, but it does kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone, right? You get upgrade in talent, you get a center position, you get a center. You could even argue, you get kind of that go-to, that third scorer, that option, plus a center that can go get a bucket. Vu's a guy that go get you 18 to 20 on every given night, go get you double digits in rebounding. Pair him alongside Anthony Davis. You got two big men. You got a guy you could throw at a Jokic, throw at a Embiid, right? If you play Minnesota, he can kind of bang with Rudy Gobert, and then you have Anthony Davis guarding Cat. I like it. It's not my favorite, just because, if DeMar was willing to take $15 million and Vu was like $15 million, sure, right? Or if they were both like combined $35 million, it's like sure, because you could just do like D'Lo and Rui and boom, get them both, and then there's the money. But the problem is you'd have to do like D'Lo, Rui, probably throwing in a like Jalen Hood-Schifino. And depending on what DeMar's contract wants, you might even have to throw in like a Gabe Vincent to do that point. Where I'd prefer to keep Gabe Vincent, because at worst you can have him as kind of your backup, right? You could have him as your backup point guard, or if like the defense is terrible, you could always just bring him into the starting unit if need be. Go and target, like I said, a Miles Bridges or something like that to bring in to give you that big defensive wing. You could still have Jared Vanderbilt off the bench. And then if you wanted to work out a trade, especially if you can keep your picks, you'd still have Gabe Vincent. You'd still have Jared Vanderbilt's contract. You'd have Max Christie if you absolutely needed to do that. So there's another $30 million in tradable salary. I think it's like $29 million. And boom, you're good. Also, Vu, like maybe not this year, but next year he'd be an expiring contract that maybe you could unload, especially if you had your picks, and maybe make a move for another upgrade again. So there are pros and cons, but as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you like the idea of bringing on Vu so that way you can go and get Demar Derozan? Do you think no, stay away from that, or stay away from DeMar, period? Or are you okay with like, hey, no, you can get DeMar? Or do you think that they should just go a different direction, right? DeMar's taking his time, and it's just not working out, right? I just don't want to wait around and DeMar ends up going to the Heat or something. It's like, well, now what? Right? Like, so it's kind of my problems. But I still think he goes to the Lakers. I still think he's going to be a Laker. But you never know, right? But anyway, let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.